Please join me in welcoming the governor of the greatest state, Georgia, Nathan Deal.
Thank you. Thank you and good morning. Let me express on behalf of the citizens of the state of Georgia an appreciation for what you as an industry do for the health care needs of the citizens of our state. I think all of you know, and as you will be discussing here, I'm sure, we continue to be a population both nationally and at our state level, and our state perhaps even more so than at the national level, one of an aging population. The baby boomers, of course, are moving into those years in which they will need the services that you provide. And I appreciate the fact that you have worked very hard to try to make those services available to them. I want to commend you also for not just trying to do things in volume, but also to do things with quality. I think that's what more and more people are asking for and expecting. The quality of life for those who approach their senior years and the quality of care that is being provided in your institutions and in your facilities, I think are one of the things that you should be duly proud of. And in that regard, I understand that the Georgia-based providers are winning more of the GHCA quality awards than any of the other states in our 8-state region. And I congratulate you for that. You should applaud yourselves for that. I know that this has been a goal of your organization, and as you work very hard toward achieving that goal, I'm glad to see that you've been recognized for your efforts. Now, I'm acutely aware, as you are, of what is happening, or in some cases, not happening in our federal government in Washington. The anticipated continued cuts in Medicare that severely impact your industry are things that certainly send shockwaves throughout your industry. And more, as those kinds of cuts take place, it puts even greater pressure on states, because our role in a Medicaid program, which by and large you're not getting rich off of, and I say that with a smile, it puts even greater pressure on those programs, and we are certainly very mindful of that. We are hopeful that in the very near future that we will see a change of attitude with regard to the importance of Medicare, keeping it as a sustainable program, one that providers can participate in and not suffer the consequences for having done so. In this challenging environment, I want to touch on a few things that I believe that we can do to improve the quality of care. As you may know, our Department of Community Health is conducting a comprehensive review of all of our Medicaid programs. They are trying to work to provide a streamlined process for providers. And they are certainly, of course, as you are, focused on quality and value-based results as we look at changes, if any, that are going to be instituted. They are also expanding tools and strategies for providers. Generally, providers are the ones who are best suited to serve the needs of patients, and we want as much as possible to give you the freedom to make those judgment calls as you see fit, because we believe you share our desire to provide quality care. For example, in accordance with our efforts to do that, as you know, we signed the Remote Automated Medication System Bill this past year. We believe that this is a tool that many of you are already using in one form or another. And I might add that the Pharmacy Board, I understand, is now working on the rules and the regulations to be able to implement that technology. And I remain committed to working with you and supporting your strategies and providing you with the tools that are necessary for you to be able to economize in the delivery of services and at the same time provide better quality of care for those that you take care of. All of you recognize, too, that with the growing demand for quality health care, that our state faces a real crisis in terms of qualified health care providers. If you heard my State of the State, you recall that I mentioned in there that we are putting about $4.2 million of new money for several very targeted purposes. One is, our goal is to create 400 new residency slots for physicians in the state of Georgia. And the reason should be very clear. We are paying for education of potential doctors all the way from preschool all the way through their medical education. As taxpayers, we participate in that process. But many times, because they do not have the available residency slots in our state, they go elsewhere. And the statistics show us that when a physician completes a residency slot in a particular location, the likelihood that they will stay in the immediate proximity of where that residency occurred is extremely high. So the result is that Georgia is paying for all of the education for our medical students and our doctors, only to see them leave our state to do a residency program and never come back. That doesn't make any sense to me for the taxpayers, doesn't make any sense for the people in our state that need quality care, and it certainly does not make sense in the overall scheme of things of being able to be a state that is somewhat self-sufficient in terms of educating and training and having available physicians. Also, a part of our effort in that regard is to expand our nursing programs. What I have found as I have gone around the state is that virtually every institution in our state, whether it be a technical college or whether it be a college or university, is seeing the demand for a nursing program being very high on their priority list. And we have some very high quality programs all across our state. The one thing, though, that we are still missing, or the two things really that we are missing, one is enough clinical slots so that the nurses can get some practical clinical type training as a part of their overall academic educational opportunity. So, for those of you who serve in various capacities, if you are in a position to encourage the availability of clinical available trials and clinical work by potential nurses, I would encourage you to try to make sure that we provide more of those opportunities. The second thing we're facing is because the demand for very well qualified and experienced nurses is so high that it is difficult to attract them into teaching roles. And we need them there. We need to have qualified instructors in our nursing program, and we're going to have to put additional money, and we have advocated doing so in order to improve the quality and the quantity of available nursing instructors. We think those are funds that will be well spent, and we think will serve our state well. As we know, everybody is looking for things that are more acceptable to the public and that are as inexpensive as possible in the overall scheme of delivery of health care. Home and community-based service options for our elderly population continue to be one of the high priorities in everybody's agenda. They are often more cost-effective, and of course, it is nearly as possible to be able to allow someone to be close to their family and to their friends is always a good thing to do. In that regard, last year I signed Senate Bill 178. This legislation gives Georgians a little bit more of an option to be able to age in place. And by creating a new category of assisted living facilities, I think we have completed another step in that continuum of care which people think are so important, and I agree, it is very important. I want to thank you as a group and as individuals for the support that I received from you during the last year's election cycle, now 2 years ago, I guess I should say, since we're in a new year. I was very fortunate to receive the support of so many of you. I do appreciate that. I want to assure you that I try to work hard every day along with my staff to live up to the responsibilities that you have allowed me to assume. We feel like that we are making some real progress in this state. I think that is the kind of thing that Georgians want to know and want to see, We are still living in very difficult economic times, but what I am trying to do is to spend your taxpayer dollars as wisely as possible. We are seeing a slight uptick in our revenue, but I want to make sure that we don't just go spend it all and find ourselves back in the posture that I was in when I took office. We had, as you may recall from my State of the State address, when I took office, our rainy day fund had so little money in it that it was less than enough money to operate our government for 2 days at the state level. We have made a significant effort to keep our spending down, and we have seen about 186% increase in our rainy day fund over the past year. And the budget that I'm proposing this year for consideration by the General Assembly will allow us to continue to increase the volume and the amount of money that is available in our rainy day fund. We don't know how long this downturn is going to last. We don't know whether it's going to be a temporary uptick and perhaps another dip down, as we have seen in the past, but the revenue of the state is continuing to rise. It's a gradual rise. We have had 18 months of continued year-over-year growth until we got to December. December was a little bit of an abnormality. We didn't see that same growth of December of this past year as opposed to the previous December. It sort of leveled off, but we are hopeful that we will see that uptick continue as we go into these months of the new year. I appreciate the fact that your organization has always been a good friend. You will continue to be a good friend, I'm sure, as we move through this legislative session this year. There are those initiatives that I mentioned that will deal with trying to improve the quality of care, and we will continue to work with you and with our federal representatives as they try to wrestle with the difficult issues at the federal level. All too often, we find ourselves so dependent on federal support and federal programs that it is difficult for states to do things independently. We have to work cooperatively. We hope that we will see the direction that is being taken in Washington be one that is a positive direction, one that allows states the flexibility, though, within the context of all of the participation at the federal and state level. States need the flexibility to design program delivery systems as best suits the needs of the state. We think we have demonstrated that we have done so responsibly, and we will continue to ask for that same kind of freedom from the federal government in terms of designing the delivery of programs that meet the needs of the citizens of the state of Georgia. I thank you for your participation and your support and your input as we continue that process. Thank you for having me here today.
The governor's doing a great job. Let's give him one more round of applause as he walks out.